أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وبعد. Jazakumullahu khairan, brothers and sisters, for alhamdulillah coming out to take some small benefit. We try to never talk more than 30 minutes, 40 minutes tops, inshallah ta'ala, because we know that people have things that they would like to do to enjoy their weekend. We hope that this will be a part of enjoying your weekend, inshallah. Coming out to hear some reminder about Islam, Sunnah, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Last week, was it last week I was here? Or the week before?
Last week.
Last week, mashallah, we had a very spirited debate about some aqidah issues. And I began, mashallah ta'ala, to think about what it meant. One brother was arguing one point, a few other brothers were saying some different things. The conclusion, who was right or wrong, is really inconsequential. It doesn't matter. So it made me start to think about what we need to do as a greater community, as a wider community. And I said I wanted to talk about hilm before ilm, right? So being patient, having some forbearance before you enjoying what you know from ilm upon people. So being patient with people before you just knock them over the head with the sunnah or hadith or Quran. So I want to ask you some questions, inshallah ta'ala, if you don't mind, so we can have some discussion. What do you think is the greatest problem facing the Muslims here in America? The greatest problems facing the Muslims here in America. What do you think it is? Excuse me, I have some allergies right now. I know when you're home with your wife, when you're home with your husband, you have some opinion, inshallah ta'ala. So we want to hear it right now. This is the opportunity, please. Yes?
Lack of knowledge.
Okay. One of our brothers in the back, he said lack of knowledge. Sheikh, do you mean Islamic knowledge, secular knowledge, knowledge of how to navigate through the American culture?
No, the lack of knowledge, when you got the knowledge, then that means first of all, we have to understand what we say. Like for example, when we say like, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, so we need to know what the means of Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, and then we want to act upon that. That's regarding to my understanding.
Thank you, Sheikh. Thank you. The Sheikh is saying that he thinks that it's a lack of understanding about deen, about if you say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. If you ask a lot of people who are not Arab, right, who don't come from Arab countries, they won't know what it means, or the implications of what it means. Alhamdulillah. So knowledge. What else? Lack of knowledge of deen. What else?
Identity.
What is it?
Identity. Whether they're an American or a Muslim.
Okay, identity. So there's an identity crisis.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that said, what do you think is the correct response to that identity crisis?
I have no clue.
To be American, to be Muslim, or to be both?
We need to bridge the gap between both.
To bridge the gap between both. Alhamdulillah. You're shaking your head in the back. What do you think?
I was agreeing with his point, and I think one of the biggest challenges what Muslims are facing currently in the United States is along the same lines, and it is so we have a culture here. It's a different culture than what.
Can you stop 1 second? Would you mind? Is it too much to film him? Or at least let me give him the mic, because I think it's beneficial for everyone over here to hear what he's saying. That's fine. Maybe you don't have to film him. I think it makes it more interesting if you do.
Okay.
But inshallah, at least handle the mic. That would be good. Thank you, brother.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you very much. So what I was trying to say is like, so one of the biggest challenges that we are facing here in this country is, I think the cultural differences. First of all, it's a different culture here in the United States, and once we come here from different countries, different backgrounds, we in a way get confused how we should adapt, and at the same time we don't want to be offensive to the culture that is here, because there's a very fine line where we can reject something by saying that it's not correct, and offending someone by saying that you're doing it wrong. You know, so I think it's a very fine line that we all are in a. I think we all have the same experience where we should hold ourselves back and where we should, you know, go ahead with how the culture is going. So I think that is one thing that we all need to, understand where we stand and how we should go forward.
Jazakallah khairan. Alhamdulillah. Thank you. Thank you, Akhi. I'm sorry to go back and forth. Appreciate it. Alhamdulillah. I agree. MashaAllah. So I have another question. What do you think about the Pledge of Allegiance? Nothing?
It's not shirk, it's okay.
It's not shirk, it's okay.
Yeah.
Brother said if it's not shirk, it's okay. Any other opinions about it? Listen, here's the thing. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, what did he say about seeking ilm? Right? He said there's one word, and if you had one word to describe Islam, it would be what? What's the one word that describes Islam?
No.
Hayat, modesty, shyness. But there's no shyness in seeking ilm, right? So we're sitting here tonight, you're giving yourself some time to sit for, not long, half an hour. Let's take benefit. Don't be shy, right? So there's no reason to be shy because I'm not a sheikh. This is not live TV, this is not CNN, it's just me. And I'm not a sheikh, I'm just a brother. I'm trying to create some conversation because I'm not here to just teach. I can't teach the sheikh over there, what can I teach that sheikh? Right, I need to sit with him. Rather, we're trying to exchange some ideas, right? Because what we have now is thought wars, brainstorms, right? So the conquerors no longer come in riding horses, right? The new conquerors, they bring ideas to the battlefield. So as men, as women of Islam, we have to exchange these ideas because we have to kind of elucidate things for ourselves, make things illuminating. And I can't sit here and do it by myself. I want you to help me. I'm asking you, inshallah ta'ala, what do you think about the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag, the United States of America, to the Republic, like this, for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Something like that. I might have missed one phrase or two. What do you think about this? Is it okay?
I think if, it depends if the whole idea of some country.
Yeah, 1 second. 30 seconds. I'm going to give you the mic.
Yeah, so I believe if we have a country where the whole constitution is based on a religious basis, and they are promoting their religious ideologies through their constitution and are implementing their religious ideologies, and in a way are, expecting us to kind of blend in that, I think then we have a problem there. But if it's a constitution that's completely based on freedom of speech and religions, and it has not to do anything with our religion backgrounds, then I don't think there should be any issues.
Okay, alhamdulillah. What's your name, brother?
I'm Yasser.
Sheikh Yasser, alhamdulillah. Imam, Ustad Yasser, mashallah ta'ala. May Allah accept. Jazakallah khairan. So you're saying, alhamdulillah, basically as long as the framework of the foundation of the country is not infringing upon your religious beliefs, then it should be okay. In fact, if you look at the United States Constitution, at the end of Article 3, right? At the end of clause number 3 in Article 6. So, and this is another thing, we should get to know our Constitution. If we're citizens of this country, we should know the Constitution. So if you look at Article 6 in the Constitution, clause 3, it says, no religious test shall be given as a qualification for any public office or trust under the United States of America. So that means that, like you said, there can't be any bias based on religion, race, creed, class. Alhamdulillah. So in fact, this is what I wanted to talk about today. Because when we think about knowledge, patience before knowledge, we always think about being patient before we tell someone that he's making wudu wrong, or being patient before we tell someone that he's making salah wrong. But what I'm talking about today is being patient with understanding where we're at and what we should implement and what we should hold back on in terms of worship and fiqh, right? Because there's a gross misconception going on in Islam, speaking to what our brothers spoke about the identity crisis of Muslims who come here. So there's a fiqh maxim, right? And this is what I want to talk about, al-wala wal-bara, the concept of loyalty and disassociation in Islam. And bay', what is this nazar, this vow, right? So there's a fiqh maxim. It's composed of 3 directives. The ulama say if you understand these directives, then you understand the religion of Islam. But many of us, we know these 3 fiqh maxims, but we don't understand what they mean. So the first one is al-istislam lillahi tawheed, to submit to God in monotheism, right? We submit our wills to God in monotheism. So, as our brother said, we can pledge allegiance. Why? For a number of reasons. Number one, allegiance is more of a amana. People translate it to mean bay'ah. It's not bay'ah. It's an amana. It's a pledge of fidelity to a municipality, right? It's a pledge of trusteeship to a municipality. So when you say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, what you're saying, and if you're going to stay for the talk, stay for the whole talk, right? Because at the end, we'll see how, inshallah ta'ala, it all comes together. We don't want people to walk away and say, oh, this brother is trying to, change Islam. No. Allegiance in the American language, in English, it has more of a correlation to the word amana, which is a trust, right? Which means that in exchange for you allowing me to come to this country, get an education, support my family, live safe and secure, participate in free enterprise, you can go and just get an LLC, a corporation, an S Corp, whatever you want, at any time you want, open a business bank account. In order for you to give us that, in exchange for that, we have a business agreement that we will not do anything to be subversive to the law. We will not do anything that destabilizes society. This is the allegiance that you're making, right? That you won't do anything that breaks the law or anything subversive. On the other hand, when you look at bay'ah, bay'ah is another. It's a vow. It's a sacred vow that you make to the rightful Muslim ruler, that you will listen and obey as long as he doesn't tell you to do anything against the Sharia, Islamic law. Allegiance can happen every day, from a kindergartner to an 80-year-old man. Every day. It's informal. It happens in public affairs, in private homes. Bay'ah happens once. And it's not given by you and I. Right? So now we're defining terms. We're trying to define what our identity should be. Right? So bay'ah happens one time. And it's very formal. It's a ceremony. And it's not given by us. It's given by the decision makers in Islam. It's given by the scholars, right? The politicians and the Muslim leaders. Likewise, one nation under God. So this country is a monotheistic country. Say whatever people like to say, it's a monotheistic country. So you and I, we better start having some exchange, some debate about this. Why? Because we're setting precedents, right? Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu awfu bil uqdud. Right? O you who believe, fulfill your promises. Be true to your contracts. Honor your trusts. So here as Americans, Muslims, Americans, however you want to look at it, we have an obligation to fulfill the rights of this country. So we had better debate about it. We had better get emotional and angry about it. We should. Why? Because as Muslims living in this country, we're setting precedents for future generations. So the holidays we celebrate, the personalities we venerate, the things we participate in, or the things we choose to refrain from, they will reverberate throughout history until they reach our grandchildren. So whatever we do, we should debate about it. And it should be a spirited debate because, mashallah, Allah chose us, right? He said that He chose us for this. So when we look at the concept of submitting to God while making Him one, the concept of monotheism, this can happen in America. This is something that we're allowed to do. So that the first fiqh maxim has no dichotomy. There's no separation between Islam and the Pledge of Allegiance. They go hand in hand. That's number one. The second fiqh maxim is al-inqiyad lahu bi-ta'a, that you would obey Allah in what He has made halal and haram. Al-inqiyad lahu bi-ta'a, that you would obey Allah in what He has made halal and haram. So this comes to something called Muslim guilt, right? If I said, where you from, Akhi?
Me? India.
India. If I said India is the worst place, man, right? It's the worst place to go. The people are rude. It has a bad government. I just don't like it, right? Where you from in the back, Yasser?
Kashmir.
Where?
Kashmir, bottom.
Kashmir?
Yeah.
If I said Kashmir, man, oh man, I heard about that place. I don't like it. It's the worst place. It's terrible. The people there are rude. It's terrible. I mean, the culture, they have no culture. How would you feel? You'd be offended, right? Well, I'm offended when people say that about my country. I'm from this place. So Muslims sometimes feel that they have to justify being here by criticizing this place that we come from, right? And it's really for Muslim guilt. You want to take all of the goodies, all of the benefits from this country, right? So you take the 401k plan, you have all of the business, you participate in universities and colleges, you participate in the corporations, you go to Disneyland, but then all you do is criticize. Not you. We're here because, mashallah ta'ala, we're trying to do our best as citizens to learn how to balance being Muslim and American. But when we hear some Muslims criticize America, we should be cautious. I'm offended. This is my country. I don't have anywhere else to go. So we shouldn't feel guilty about taking the goodies. The ulama say that we should feel a sense of responsibility. Right? We're not guilty by indictment, meaning that we're not guilty on the basis that we get privileges, but we are charged to a higher standing. We have a higher standard that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. Because, listen, I believe, and Allah knows best, that if any Muslim populace is going to change the world, if any Muslim population of citizens is going to affect change, transform the environment, then it is going to necessarily be the Muslims living in America. Allah knows best. Why? Because 99% of the population of other Muslim countries are illiterate, functional illiterates. They can't read, they can't write. It's not their fault, but it's a fact. Like whole populations, entire populations of youth, Muslim youth, can't read and write. They're illiterate. So who has an opportunity to change the world? You and I. If you look around the world, right, you will not see a group of Muslims gathered with these qualities to such an extent as you see gathered in this room tonight and in the colleges and universities and corporations across the United States like you see here. So we love Islam. We think democratically. We think objectively. And this is part and parcel to Islamic law. There's nothing, mashallah, that's strange about being Muslim and thinking democratically. Rather, this is the Sunnah. We see the Sahaba demonstrating democracy, right? We see Umar, he said, I want you to sami'na wa ata'na, hear and obey. And they said, we will not hear and obey. He said, why? He said, because when we got that shipment of shirts, every one of us got one, and you got two. Umar, they got a shipment of clothing. And everybody in Medina got one piece of clothing. But here Umar is, he's standing up giving a public address as the Khalifa, and he has two. He took two of these sheets. So the man got up and he said, we will not listen and we will not obey. Umar said, why? He said, because you got two and we got one. That's not democratic. That's not fair. Umar, he said, mashallah. He said, Abdullah, his son, he said, come in. He said, tell them. Abdullah said, my father is a big man. My father is very big. The clothing that we received was very small. So I gave him mine. You see, so this is democracy in action. The people have a voice. And many of the so-called, quote-unquote, Muslim countries, if you critique the government, they put you in jail for 5 years. What part of Islam is that? So the people who have an obligation are you and I, our children, the Muslims in universities, because we think democratically, we love Islam, we're creative, we're proactive, we're passionate. So ilm before ilm, right? So this is a very important point. And finally, the last fifth maxim, al-bara'atu min ash-shirk wa ahlihi. Al-bara'atu min ash-shirk wa ahlihi. So al-Islam lillahi bi-tawheed, al-inqiyadu bi-ta'a, al-bara'atu min ash-shirk wa ahlihi. That you would separate yourself from polytheism and its people. That you would separate yourself from polytheism and its people. So here's the thing. Bismillah. May Allah preserve our ulama. Ameen. But, wa alaikum as-salam. If a sheikh who studies somewhere in a village 8,000 miles away, under Islamic law, and I've said this before and I will continue to say it, he cannot give us a fatwa. No. The aqidah of a Muslim never changes, right? So it's not like we're in America, Sheikh, we now have to believe in 1.5 gods because we're in America. No, the aqidah doesn't change. La ilaha illallah. However, fiqh must necessarily change, right? Fiqh al-aqalliyat. Sheikh Shanqiti, he said it is necessary. Fiqh al-aqalliyat, the fiqh of minorities. It's a new fiqh. So some scholars have rushed to judgment and they said, this is a bid'ah. But Sheikh al-Shanqiti, some other ulama, they say no. Sharia is in place. Sharia itself is the divine revealed law, the Quran, and the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What we derive from that will change from generation to generation based on the need. Ijtihad. So what does this mean? This means that when you say al-bara'atu min ash-shirk wa ahlihi, that you separate yourself from shirk, from polytheism and its people. We used to think in the past, because of the ulama far away, and may Allah preserve them, we used to think that this means we have to always be angry with people who don't believe what we believe. We have to show enmity and hostility to these people until we get sick. And then we have to go to their hospitals until we want an education. Then we have to sit in their classrooms and listen to them teach us about economics and teach us about science and infrastructure and engineering. So there has to be some explanation from separating yourself from polytheism as it's defined in Islam, right? Because if we go what is apparent, we would have to, all of us, pack up and leave according to what we supposedly believe. So there has to be some explanation, because why? We don't separate ourselves from some people, not everyone in America, but we don't separate ourselves from some people who have a belief that's contrary to ours. So what does al-bara'atu min ash-shirk wa ahlihi really mean? And Allah knows best what it really means. It means that we do not participate in holidays that contradict our theology. Right? We do not participate in holidays that go against our aqa'id, our belief system. We do not participate in acts of worship and veneration that go against our ibadah. But it does not mean that you can't say to your non-Muslim neighbor, how you doing? Is everything okay? Look, we made some extra pasta. Would you like some? It does not mean that you can't go to your job and say, how you doing? How was your weekend? Right? We're getting confused. It doesn't mean we can't go to a party if they invite us to come and sit with them. That's not what it means. It means that we don't celebrate anything that goes against our deen and ibadah. Because a mistake that we make is we believe that Muslims came to America in 1970s, in the 1960s, when in fact we had been a part of America's story from the very beginning, brothers and sisters. The first Muslim to come to America, who was it? Slaves.
No.
Who?
It was Muslims before the slaves.
Who?
We discovered before Christopher Columbus. It was Muslims here long, 20,000 years before.
There were, mashallah, there were some there was some Arabic they found on rocks before Columbus. I mean, there were many people here before Columbus, but there was definitely some Arabic that they found on rocks. Arabic that just wasn't Arabic, stating the Shahadatain, right? La ilaha illallah, statements of monotheism, statements of tawheed, but documented on paper. The first Muslim to step ground on America, on American soil, his name was Zamoy in 1528, and he was from Morocco, and he was a slave, and his slave name was Estabanico, and his life is well documented. His Islam is well documented. Estabanico, Zamoy, 1528, in the 16th century, this man, and he's considered the first African American because he was from Morocco. He came here, assimilated. He's considered the first African American, right? Not only that, do you know Cesar Chavez? Anybody know who he is? Cesar Chavez. Okay, I'm going to give you a small background, inshallah. Cesar Chavez, he was the Latino Martin Luther King Jr. The Latino Martin Luther King Jr. He was a man who was a farmer in America. He established the National Farm Workers Union. Because remember, to be a farmer in the 1940s and the 50s and the 60s was similar to being a chattel slave. You know what a chattel slave is? A chattel slave is a slave that has no rights and is owned by, and their children is owned by a slave master. So being a farm worker in the 40s and 50s and the 60s was similar to being a chattel slave in 16th, 17th century America. So this man, Cesar Chavez, he gathered the farm workers all over the country and they participated in non-violent protest here in America to get the rights of farm workers changed so they would have a decent living wage and a decent place to live. Why does this matter to you? And this is the problem with Muslims. Muslims say, Wallahi, what does this matter to me, akhi? Let's listen. Let's take benefit. These people, just like the blacks of the civil rights movement, they were tortured. These Latinos, these farm workers, they weren't just Latinos. Cesar Chavez was Latino, but they were tortured. They were harassed. They were ostracized. They were boycotted, and some were killed. This was a huge movement, and if you don't know, you should find out. However, the first martyr, the first shahada, inshallah, bi'idhnillah, of this movement was a young Muslim from Yemen. His name was Naji Dayfullah, 24 years old, 1970s, shot point blank range in the chest by a vigilante while he was participating in a non-violent protest, right? Naji Dayfullah, rahimahullah, may Allah have mercy on him. The people who built the railroads in America at the turn of the 20th century were from Yemen. Do you know that? The people who built the railroads in America were from Yemen. By 1920, there were over 20,000 people from the Levant, from Shem. One particular family was named the Arbeelys, Professor Arbeely and his 6 sons and his wife and his nephew and his niece. They came in 1901, something like this. They came to America. America wrote all kind of articles about this man, Professor Arbeely, this Arab professor who was Muslim, who came here to America, and they were happy that he was bringing his prestigious career to America. In fact, after World War II, America solicited Arab countries, send us your scholars. After World War II, we're jammed up. Send us your engineers. Send us your philosophers. Send us your scientists. Why? Because we need to be able to compete as a superpower. So they wanted all of the Muslims to come here, right? Did you know that there were 150 Muslims on the Titanic? 150 Muslims on the Titanic. What does this mean? Wherever there's American history, there's some Muslims written into it. Allahu Akbar. So this country is your country too. Now I'm going to tell you something. Bismillah. I'm going to make 3 statements, and then I'm going to attach 3 questions to these statements. And I want you to answer these questions in your mind, inshallah ta'ala. The first statement: there is a movement in America, not a political party, a movement in America. And this movement preaches that there is a religion that is destroying America. First question, in your mind, what is this movement? What's the name of this movement? Statement number 2. There is a political party that has given this movement a voice, and this political party, its entire premise is based upon the idea that they promise that they will rid America of any influence of this religion or its adherents. We're going to rid, this political party says, it's a newly formed political party. We're going to rid America from any influence of this religion or the people who practice this religion. So my question to you is, what political party is this? Bismillah. Last statement. There are other religions who say that this particular religion is mentioned in the book of Revelations in the Bible as the whore of Babylon, as being the coming of the Antichrist, as being a sign of Shaitan, the devil. So my question is, what religion are we talking about? What religion are we talking about? Naturally, you might think in your mind, Islam, of course. But no, we're talking about Catholicism. Catholicism. In the 19th century, in 1848, there was a movement called the Nativists. The Nativists, they said, Catholicism is destroying America. Right? They found a voice in a newly formed political party called the Know Nothing Party. The Know Nothing Party had a president, United States president, called Millard Fillmore. In 1856, he was a United States president. The Know Nothing Party, they said, we promise you, America, we're going to get rid of Catholicism. We will make sure that there are no Catholic politicians or decision makers in America. And the other religion that said that Catholicism was a sign of the Antichrist were Protestant Christians. You see, so Islam is not the first faith to be misunderstood. But what happened? What changed? Now, Massachusetts is a Catholic commonwealth. When Catholicism was banned, it was illegal in the 17th and 18th century in Massachusetts. You couldn't practice Catholicism in Massachusetts 200 years ago. How did now it become a commonwealth of Catholics? I'm going to tell you, subhanAllah, this is where we end and take a lesson. Bismillah. One man's name, Bishop Benedict Fenwick. Bishop Benedict Fenwick, he came here to Massachusetts at a time where Catholicism it had just been allowed, but people still hated Catholics. And he took a different approach. He said, okay, we need to teach Catholics what it means to be Catholics in America. We need to teach Catholics what it means to be Catholics in America. Catholics are no longer in Rome, right? So you can't take that Roman fiqh, no, and bring it here. We need to know what it's like to be Catholic in America. So he started a college in his basement. And he said, this college will teach, it will be a seminary. You know what that college is today? Boston College. Boston College. But anti-Catholics, they hated the fact that Bishop Benedict was gaining ground. They sabotaged his efforts. When the college got built up, they kicked him out. They kicked him out of Boston College. So he said, okay, I'm going to start another one. So he went out further west, Massachusetts. He opened a small seminary. You know what that small seminary became? College of the Holy Cross. SubhanAllah. These are huge colleges. And that was the first approach. The second thing Bishop Benedict Fenwick did, He didn't take an approach that said, what about us? What about the Catholics? What about our rights? No. You know what he said? What about you? As Catholics, we're here to serve. What about you? They went out, he gathered the Catholics, and they began to perform direct services. Social services for the homeless, for the hungry, right? For those who have been rejected by society. And he started a newspaper called The Pilot. And in The Pilot, he would dispel all of the myths about Catholicism. He would debunk all of the ugly rumors about Catholicism and write about all of the good work that they were doing in the community. He didn't talk about Catholic rights. And you didn't do this to this group of Protestants, why are you doing this to us? No. He said, what about you? So what do we learn from this? The Muslims have to stop taking a victim attitude. We have to stop trying to make ourselves victims wherever we go. Whenever we go somewhere, we should ask, who needs help? How can we serve our communities? This is the problem. We want to be victims, so we can justify our weakness. But if we look at the Catholics, after Bishop Benedict Fenwick, in 40, 50 years, Boston had its first Catholic mayor. In 40, 50 years, first Catholic mayor. When the Jews came here 100 years ago, same problem, misunderstood. What did they do? They opened up hospitals. They fought for social justice for everyone else. And in the process, you are explaining to America what your religion stands for, right? But instead, when some crazy Muslim somewhere blows something up, we say, that's not Islam. Islam means peace. And that's it. But we should be more proactive. You see? This is deen. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu in tansurullaha yansurkum wa yuthabbit aqdamakum. Oh, you who believe, if you help Allah, what? Allah will help you. How do you help Allah? You say, Allah, let me give you some advice, Allah. No. The way you help Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that you help the people. Allah does not change the condition of a people until they first change themselves. So the way we change ourselves is to change our attitude, change our outlook. Stop being victims. Go out into the world and serve. And then you show people what the Quran is, a book of a life. It's a book of life. This is what it really is. This is your country too. So how many of you consider yourselves to be American patriots? Raise your hand. Bismillah. Okay, that's a problem. Did I see your hand like this? One brother was like in the back, putting up one finger. And then someone looked and he scratched. No, I didn't raise my hand.
Well, define.
Okay, Sheikh, thank you. Let's define terms. We got a brother back there on the wall, got all 5 fingers up. Let's define terms, brother. Bismillah. What is a patriot? It is someone who loves a thing enough to praise it and point out its flaws. You love it so much that you praise it and you critique it. You see, and this is the difference between patriotism and nationalism. We're not American nationalists. In fact, we're not Muslim nationalists. We don't just defend Islam all of the time, no matter what. Defend the Muslims no matter what. Nationalists are blind to justice. They defend no matter what, right or wrong. But patriots, they praise and they critique. They love this thing so much that they point out flaws in the system. Why? Because they want it to make it better. They want to make it better. So all of us should be American Muslim patriots. Who's patriots in this room? Allahu Akbar. Now we see the hands going up. Allahu Akbar. And if we're patriots, it means that we love this country. We love what it has given us and provided for us to such an extent that we praise it for the things that it has done right. But we know that it can do better. So we critique it and we try to tweak it to make it better. Be a patriot. Don't be a nationalist. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Any questions or statements? We love it to be an exchange and not just me talking at you. We love an exchange.
It seems that many of us have an inferiority complex to what you were saying.
MashaAllah.
Something we need to overcome, I think, in addition to what you just said.
Yes, Sheikh, MashaAllah. The Sheikh reminded us that we have an inferiority complex and that we always feel the need to, you know, like a short man syndrome, a person who feels like they need to be tough all the time or be a certain way aggressive, when really Islam has nothing to prove, right? We have proven throughout history who protected the Jewish lives during the Spanish Inquisition, when Spanish Catholics were killing Jews and Muslims, right? The Ottoman Empire said, come to us, we'll protect you, right? When the Prophet ﷺ entered into Medina, he built a contract. He said, the Muslims and the Jews are one community. He said, the Jews have a right to life. You cannot kill them on the basis that they're Jews. La ikraha fi din. There's no compulsion in religion. He said, the Jews have a right to property. They have a right to business. He said, they have a right to be treated fairly. Your neighbors have rights over you. They have a right to be defended by the Muslims. So the Muslims have nothing to be ashamed of, right? As the Sheikh said, if we have an inferiority complex, just read history. And inshallah, Allah will give you some honor from history. But now we have to recreate our own story. We have to write our own story now. And that's only going to happen not with us saying Muslims created the Arabic, Muslims created the American alphabet. We created the number 0. That's old. That happened 1,000 years ago. What have we done lately? We should be like Tawakkul Karman, right? Karman Tawakkul. May Allah preserve her. The 2011 Nobel Peace Prize winner. A woman. We should be like her. We should be making moves, teaching our children to think revolutionary thoughts. Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. I'm not going to keep you hostage. Assalamu alaikum.